In the hidden kingdom of Nerithal, far beneath the Sapphire Sea, the water shimmered with soft magic. Coral towers spiraled like underwater castles, glowing in hues of pink, blue, and green. Fish darted through kelp forests, and dolphins leapt between currents like laughter skipping over the waves. And in the heart of it all was Mirella. She was no ordinary mermaid. Born under the rare eclipse of sea and moon, Mirella had a gift no one in Nerithal had seen for 1,000 years. When she sang, her voice carried healing. Wounds would close, sick coral would bloom again, lost creatures would find their way home. But some in the kingdom feared it. She's too different, they whispered. No mermaid should have power over life itself. It's unnatural, dangerous. So Mirella kept mostly to herself. She spent her days in the luminous garden, a secret place deep in the reef where the coral pulsed gently with light, and the ocean was quiet enough to hear your own heart. It was here, one golden morning, that a dolphin named Nerithal came to her, his side torn by a shark's bite, his eyes clouded with pain. Mirella swam quickly to him. Her silver hair flowed behind her, and tiny glowing sea stars clung to her shoulders like pins of light. Easy, Nerithal, she whispered, resting her hands on his wound. Let the water carry your fear away. Then, softly, she sang. It was not a song with words, but one of heart and warmth. Her voice was gentle as a tide at dusk, rising and falling like the waves. The water around them glowed with golden ripples. As she sang, the wound began to close. The coral around them pulsed brighter. Nerith's shivering slowed, and his cloudy eye cleared. When she finished, the dolphin let out a happy chirp and pressed his nose to her cheek. You'll be all right now, Mirella smiled. From behind a rock, 2 young seahorses peeked out, watching in awe. She really is magic, one whispered. She saved him without a potion, said the other. Mirella heard them and turned, but they darted away, frightened. She sighed. Even after all this time, some sea folk still didn't trust her gift. It made her heart ache, but she had learned to find comfort in the sea itself. The water always welcomed her. The creatures understood her. As she swam to the surface cave where sunlight filtered in like golden rain, she closed her eyes and listened. The ocean sang back, but suddenly, the song changed. A strange cold swept through the water. The glowing coral dimmed slightly. Mirella opened her eyes, and a school of fish fled past her in panic. She turned toward the kingdom. Far in the distance, the bright palace of Nerithal shimmered with alarm. Something was wrong, very wrong. The ocean trembled. From her coral garden, Mirella could feel it, deep in her bones, like a tremor in her soul. Something ancient had shifted. Something sacred had been touched. She swam fast, her tail slicing through the currents like silver lightning. Schools of fish scattered in her wake. Her heart pounded louder than the waves. In the distance, the palace of Nerithal loomed like a dream of light, its spires built from coral and pearl, its windows shimmering with ocean magic. It was the heart of the kingdom, the home of the royals, and the keeper of the sea's most precious treasure. The crystal heart. Mirella reached the outer gates just as bells of shell and glass began to ring, sharp and urgent. Guards were shouting. Royal mages formed magic barriers around the entrance. Sea-wolves howled from the palace towers. Mirella pushed through the gathering crowd. Let me through, she cried. Lady Mirella, wait, said one of the guards. It's not safe. But she was already swimming into the grand hall, her hair glowing in the golden light of the crystal chandeliers. And then, she stopped. Gasps echoed around her. At the center of the chamber, where the crystal heart once floated in a crown of pearl and starlight, there was now only darkness. The pedestal had cracked in two. The walls, once singing softly with the hum of peace, were silent. And above the empty pedestal, the final glowing embers of the crystal heart drifted like dying fireflies, winking out one by one. No, Mirella whispered, drifting closer. She touched the empty space where the heart had once floated, and felt nothing. No warmth, no song, only cold. A hush fell as the Sea Queen Ireliah entered the chamber, flanked by her guards and her 2 daughters, Princess Talia and Princess Nyra. Queen Ireliah was tall and regal, with eyes like polished shells and a crown of spiral pearls that glowed with faint magic. But now, her face was pale with horror. The crystal heart, she said, her voice shaking, has been stolen. A collective gasp rippled through the court. By who? Someone asked. How could anyone get past the wards? Magic this dark, murmured one of the palace mages. It hasn't been seen in 100 years. Suddenly, the great vision shell in the center of the chamber flickered to life. Mirella turned toward it. The shell swirled with blue mist, replaying a haunting image, a shadowed figure, cloaked in swirling black magic, slipping into the crystal chamber. Tentacles of darkness slithered from their fingertips, wrapping around the heart and lifting it away. The light cracked, the chamber shook, the figure vanished into a whirl of shadow. Then, the vision ended. Princess Nyra clutched her sister. Who was that? Queen Irelia turned to her advisors. Seal the kingdom. No one leaves. We must protect what remains. But Mirella's heart was racing. That magic, it was cold, unnatural. And yet, it felt familiar, like something from the old tales. She stepped forward. Your Majesty, she said, bowing deeply. Please let me help. I may not be one of the royal daughters, but my gift, my voice, can still be used to trace magic. I felt the moment it was taken. I may be able to find it. Some nobles muttered. One of the advisors frowned. She's just a healer, he said. This is not her place. But Queen Irelia raised her hand. She may be our only chance. She approached Mirella and took her hands gently. There are stories, the queen whispered, of a mermaid born with healing song, destined not only to mend wounds but to restore the broken sea. Mirella blinked. You believe in the prophecy. I believe in you. The queen turned to the hall. Mirella of the crystal depths shall be given the blessing of the sea spirits. Let her be guided. Let her be protected. The royal priestesses stepped forward, forming a circle around Mirella. Light poured from their hands, wrapping around her like threads of moonlight and foam. She felt something ancient awaken inside her. And then, just before the light faded, a single word echoed in her mind, whispered by a voice older than the sea. Find the truth in the tides. That night, Mirella sat alone on the edge of the palace reef, looking out toward the dark waters beyond the kingdom. Naru, the dolphin she healed, floated beside her. They don't know what's coming, she said softly. But I feel it. The sea is changing. A shadow passed across the moon above. And far below, in the forgotten trenches of the ocean, a dark laughter echoed, unheard by all, save the sea creatures that fled from it in silence. The crystal heart was stolen. And the age of balance was breaking. 3 days had passed since the crystal heart was stolen. The once vibrant kingdom of Nerithal had grown quiet. The waters around it had dimmed, and the coral towers lost their shimmer. Sea creatures that once swam joyfully through the currents now stayed hidden in crevices, weary and restless. And deep within the ocean, in a sacred cave hidden by magic and time, Mirella prepared to receive the prophecy of the sea spirits. She floated silently at the mouth of the Cavern of Whispers, a place no merfolk could enter without the queen's permission. Only the chosen ever stepped into the circle of visions. Tonight, Mirella was the chosen one. Around her swam 6 sea priestesses, their robes flowing like kelp, their eyes glowing with old power. They sang softly in an ancient tongue, calling upon the sea spirits who guarded the heart of the ocean. As they sang, the walls of the cave began to glow. Symbols appeared, fish swirling in spirals, moons cradled by waves, stars descending into the deep. The water inside the cave shimmered like air caught in a dream. Enter, child of song, the eldest priestess whispered. The spirits await you. Mirella took a deep breath and swam into the sacred chamber. It was breathtaking. Jellyfish floated overhead like drifting lanterns. Blue-green light reflected off crystal formations that sprouted from the stone walls. In the center was a circle made of seashells, pearls, and stardust. Mirella entered it. The moment she did, the water stilled. Everything fell silent. Then a soft pulse echoed from the stone beneath her. Dum, dum, dum. It was like a heartbeat, slow, deep, and ancient. Suddenly, the lights around her flared. And in the glowing mist, 3 figures appeared, shimmering forms made of water, starlight, and moonbeams. Their faces were soft and wise, their eyes endless like the sea. Mirella gasped. She had heard the stories, but never imagined she would stand before the sea spirits themselves. The central spirit spoke, its voice like the tide brushing against shore. Daughter of the depths, bearer of the healing song, the ocean's balance now lies with you. Mirella bowed her head. Please, tell me how to stop what's coming. The spirit on the left, shaped like a wave crowned with pearls, spoke next. The crystal heart was not taken by greed, but by grief. The thief believes the ocean must forget peace to be saved. The spirit on the right, whose form was a current filled with stars, whispered. To restore what has been broken, you must journey through the 3 trials of tides, time, truth, and trust. Mirella's heart pounded. Where do I begin? The central spirit raised its hand. A glowing shell formed in the water, hovering before her. Inside it, tiny lights swirled like a miniature galaxy. This is the shell of memory, the spirit said. It will guide you to the lost truths, if your heart remains open. She reached for the shell, and the moment her fingers touched it, a vision flashed through her mind. A whirlpool spinning in a trench of darkness. A broken statue of a mermaid, weeping in the deep. A boy from the surface world, reaching into the water with a wounded soul. And the sea witch, laughing in the dark, holding the fractured crystal heart in her clawed hand. The vision vanished. Mirella gasped, her eyes wide. You saw, the spirit said. The path is long, the danger great. But the sea believes in you. The central spirit leaned close, its eyes glowing with warmth. Your gift is not only to heal bodies, but to heal the very heart of the ocean. With that, the spirits began to fade. The priestesses outside sang louder, their voices rising like waves in harmony. Mirella clutched the shell of memory to her chest, filled with a strange mix of fear and purpose. The sea spirits were gone. But their song remained, in her heart, and in the waters around her. As she swam out of the cavern, the oldest priestess met her eyes. You must leave the borders of Nerithal, she said. Your first trial lies in the whirlpool of lost time. Will I return? Mirella asked. None do unchanged, the priestess replied. But remember, your song is stronger than fear. That night, as the kingdom rested uneasily, Mirella gathered her things, coral staff, healing pouch, star shell pendant, and the shell of memory. With Naru at her side, she left the coral gates and swam toward the unknown. Far beyond, in the trench of echoes, a cloaked figure watched from the shadows. The sea witch's red eyes glinted. So, the girl awakens, she hissed. Let her come, the sea is not as kind as she thinks. And her laughter curled through the darkness like poisoned ink. The ocean grew colder as Mirella swam farther from Nerithal. The waters here were deeper, quieter, filled with the echoes of long-forgotten things. Even the sunlight above seemed hesitant to enter. Beside her, Naru swam cautiously, his clicks and whistles soft with worry. Mirella clutched the shell of memory, which now pulsed faintly in her hand, guiding her toward a place that only existed in the oldest stories. The whirlpool of lost time. It was said to be a scar on the sea, a place where forgotten memories, lost dreams, and sunken years circled forever, waiting for those brave or foolish enough to enter. But the sea spirits had shown her this place. Her first trial lay within it. Suddenly, the waters around her began to pull. The current shifted, the world tilted, and ahead, the water twisted into a giant whirlpool, spinning slow and steady like the ticking of an unseen clock. Around its edges floated hourglasses, broken watches, and bubbles filled with memories, a girl chasing her shadow, a mother crying over a fallen shell, a mermaid turning away from a storm. This is it, Mirella whispered. Naru gave a soft warning chirp. It's all right, we go together. Holding tightly to her sea turtle friend, Mirella let the current pull them in. The whirlpool was vast inside. Not violent like she had feared, more like falling through layers of forgotten dreams. She passed ancient ruins, ghostly lullabies, and even a flicker of her own childhood, her first healing, her first fear. Suddenly, they reached a calm, glowing pocket at the center. There floated a sunken garden, still and glowing with moon lilies and time-bent coral. And in the center sat a strange, cloaked figure. Mirella landed gently on the sea floor. Hello, the figure turned. It was not a threat, but an elder of time, a guardian spirit wrapped in seaweed robes, with a beard made of drifting sand and a staff tipped with a ticking conch shell. I've been waiting, child of the sea, the elder said, voice slow and echoing. Few come to face what they've lost. I was sent by the sea spirits, Mirella said, her voice steady. To begin the first trial. The elder nodded. Then you must offer something. Something you've lost, buried, or feared to remember. Mirella hesitated. What had she buried? Her hand reached for the shell of memory. And suddenly, a memory swirled out into the water, a young Mirella singing joyfully in her coral garden, until a group of other mermaids mocked her, laughed, and swam away. You think you're special, you're just a sea freak. She had forgotten that moment. Or rather, she had hidden it deep, locking it away with shame. Tears stung her eyes. They were afraid of me. Of my gift. I stopped singing for weeks after that. The elder touched the memory gently. And yet, you sing again. I learned to sing for others, she said. But, I never healed that part of myself. The elder nodded. Then this is your trial. Forgive what made you hide your light. He raised his hand, and the memory wrapped around her like a bubble, soft and aching. She breathed deeply and began to sing. Not for anyone else. Just for herself. A soft lullaby, pure and unguarded, weaving through the garden of time. The whirlpool trembled. The memory dissolved, not forgotten, but transformed. And inside her heart, something heavy lifted. You've passed, the elder whispered. The first trial is complete. A symbol lit up on her shell of memory, a glowing tide clock made of coral and starlight. Follow the shell, the elder said. Your next trial waits in the deep, in the sunken temple of tears. With a swirl of current, Mirella and Naru were gently lifted from the garden and spun upward, toward light. As they emerged from the whirlpool, the sea was calm again. Mirella smiled faintly, though tears still shimmered in her eyes. I'm stronger now, she whispered. Because I faced the part of me that hurt most. Naru chirped proudly, but far in the darkness below, red eyes flickered once more. The sea witch watched the whirlpool close. So she's learning, she hissed. Then let her see what true sorrow feels like, in the temple of tears. The sea surface above was restless. Mirella floated just beneath it, the water around her calm and blue, yet the sky beyond churned with heavy gray clouds. Thunder cracked in the distance. The ocean smelled like change. Beside her, Naru let out a warning whistle. They had followed the shell of memory's glow for hours, and it had led them not deeper, but upward, toward the open sea. It pulsed urgently, its light blinking like a heartbeat. Something, or someone, was coming. Suddenly, Naru squealed and dashed upward. Mirella followed, rising toward the storm-touched surface. And there she saw him. A human boy. He was clinging weakly to a shattered piece of driftwood, his skin pale and cold, his lips nearly blue. His arm was scraped and bleeding, and his eyes were closed. A wave nearly swallowed him whole. Without hesitation, Mirella broke the surface and wrapped her arms around his chest, lifting his head. He didn't stir. Breathe, she said. Please breathe. She sang a soft note, placing a hand on his heart. The water shimmered gold for a moment, and then he coughed. Water splashed from his lungs as he gasped for breath, blinking slowly, dazed. Mirella pulled him gently beneath the waves, letting the ocean cradle him. Around them, the water calmed as her healing song filled the current. When he opened his eyes, they met hers. Sea green to sea blue. He blinked. Mermaid. Mirella flushed. Yes, you're safe now. Am I dreaming? He mumbled. No, she said softly. You're alive. Later, they sat near a quiet reef, just beyond the edge of the whirlpool's waters. The boy rested on a flat rock that peeked above the surface, while Mirella floated nearby, keeping one eye on him, and one hand on her glowing shell. My name is Kale, he said weakly. I was on a ship. We were caught in the storm. The waves, they took everything. Mirella tilted her head. You're from the surface. He nodded. But I've always believed in the sea's magic. My mother used to tell me stories of mermaids and the crystal heart. Mirella's breath caught. You know of the heart? I dreamed of it, Kale whispered. Before the storm hit, I saw it in a vision. A light, shattered. A girl, with silver hair. And something terrible rising from the dark. Mirella's heart pounded. That was me. Their eyes locked. She looked down at her shell of memory. It glowed faintly, not with warning, but with welcome. Kale was meant to be part of her journey. But why would the sea show you this? She asked. I don't know, Kale said. But I think I was meant to find you. Mirella hesitated. It was forbidden to trust surface dwellers, yet something about Kale felt true, gentle, and steady, like the deep tide. You can come with us, she said finally. If you're strong enough. Kale smiled weakly. I'll try. And so, for the first time, Mirella's journey would no longer be taken alone. Below them, the shell of memory pointed southeast, to a darker current. To a place of sorrow. To the sunken temple of tears. The deeper they swam, the colder the sea became. Even Naru, normally joyful, swam more cautiously now. The shell of memory glowed bright, leading them through a shadowy canyon where statues of weeping mermaids and broken towers lined the seabed like gravestones. Finally, they reached it, a sunken temple, shaped like a massive face carved from coral and stone. Water poured from its stone eyes like tears, flowing in endless streams. Mirella gasped. This is it. Kale shivered. It feels sad. It's a place where sorrow was sealed, Mirella whispered. Long ago, when the ocean was still young. They passed beneath the tear falls and entered the temple. Inside, the waters were silent, thick, heavy, echoing with emotion. Mirella felt it at once. Grief, loss, heartbreak. It wasn't her own, it was the temple's memory. On the walls, glowing mosaics told a story, a kingdom that had tried to erase pain, but in doing so, forgot love, too. They had locked their tears away in stone, believing it would protect them. But sorrow, left unspoken, grows into shadow. At the center of the temple floated a giant glass orb, surrounded by swirling silver water. It pulsed softly with voices, crying, whispering, calling out. The second trial was clear, to feel what others buried. Mirella stepped forward and touched the orb. Memories flooded her. A young mermaid whose sister had vanished in a storm. A dolphin who lost his pod to a sea quake. A father who never returned from the surface. All of it flowed into her heart. Kale tried to pull her back. Mirella, but she shook her head. I have to feel it. Or I can't help them. Tears flowed from her eyes, real, glowing tears that sparkled in the water. She wept for the temple. She wept for the ocean. She wept for herself. And the orb began to glow. The temple shimmered. And then, silence turned to song. A gentle melody filled the water, not one of sorrow, but of release. The walls brightened. The statues, tears turned golden. Mirella floated back, exhausted, but glowing. On the shell of memory, a second symbol appeared, a golden tear-shaped gem wrapped in coral. You did it, Kale said softly. Mirella nodded, wiping her face. We all carry sorrow, but healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means feeling it. She turned to leave, and for the first time, the temple gates opened on their own. The ocean welcomed her onward. Far above, in the shadows of the trench of drowning stars, the sea witch hissed and clenched her clawed hand. She's too strong, she growled. I'll not let her reach the crystal. She looked into her black mirror. Release the wailing tides. The sea grew darker than night. Even the shell of memory dimmed, flickering like a dying star. Mirella, Kale, and Naru had followed its light through the ruins of forgotten cities, past drifting skeleton ships, and into the shadow of the trench of drowning stars, a place few dared to name, let alone enter. This is where the sea spirit's light ends, Mirella whispered. Beyond this point, we face what they cannot guide us through. Kale looked around nervously. I don't like this place. Neither do I, Mirella admitted. But the crystal heart is close. I feel it. The water here felt heavy. Thick, like it remembered pain too deep for words. And then they saw her. A massive cavern yawned before them, black coral-like twisted ribs formed the entrance. Inside, glowing red lights blinked like watching eyes. The abyssal witch was waiting. They entered cautiously. The cavern's walls pulsed with shadows. Long-forgotten voices whispered from every crevice. Strange fish with too many eyes swam backward through the currents. Even Naru stayed close, quiet and trembling. And then, she appeared. She rose from her throne of shattered bones and broken crystals, a towering figure of elegance and terror. Her hair flowed like poisonous kelp. Her arms were long and graceful, ending in coral-tipped claws. Her eyes were pools of red flame. The abyssal witch. Ah, she purred. The mermaid with the healing voice. And the human boy. How quaint. Kale stepped forward, fists clenched. You stole the crystal heart. She smiled darkly. I reclaimed it. The sea gave its power to fools who used it to suppress what they couldn't control. You poisoned the ocean, Mirella said. And turned creatures against each other. I freed them, she replied. From lies. From weakness. From the illusion of peace. Do you know how many cried for help while the royals danced above them? She pointed a claw at Mirella. Even you, child of light, were cast out. You were feared. I understand you. I am not like you, Mirella said, her voice strong. I may have been hurt, but I don't want to spread pain. I want to heal. The witch's smile faded. Then you are a fool. She raised her hands. Dark waves crashed through the chamber. Shadow creatures formed from ink and bone lunged toward them. Kale drew the small blade he had carried since the wreck. Naru dove at the monsters with fierce determination. Mirella floated tall and proud. She sang, a song of light, of everything the witch had tried to bury, hope, love, courage. The water shimmered with gold, cutting through the black tide like sun through a storm. The shadows screamed and retreated. But the witch only laughed. You cannot destroy me with kindness, she hissed. Not when I know your deepest fear. And with a flick of her hand, the water twisted, forming a vision before Mirella. It was her own reflection, but broken, scarred, afraid. You are not enough, the witch whispered. You never were. Mirella trembled, but Kale shouted, don't listen. That's not you. And then, he stepped between them, holding out his hand to Mirella. You saved me when I was drowning. You gave me hope. That's who you are. Mirella took his hand, and her heart lit up. The shell of memory flashed brightly, and a third symbol appeared, a dragonfly made of light and tears, the mark of trust. Mirella's voice rose again, stronger than before. Golden waves burst from her, pushing back the shadows. The witch shrieked, stumbling backward. Cracks formed in her throne. You cannot stop what's begun. Yes, I can, Mirella said. Because I believe in more than fear. I believe in healing, and in the ocean's light. With a final note, the chamber filled with brightness. The crystal heart appeared, floating in the air behind the witch, fractured but whole. As the witch vanished into shadows, banished by light, the heart shimmered, and chose Mirella. The heart hovered before her. Slowly, gently, it lowered into her hands. It was heavier than she expected, and warm with sorrow and strength. "She's gone?" Kale asked. "No," Mirella said. "She'll return. Shadows always try to rise again. But now, we are ready." The crystal heart pulsed with soft light, restored, but changed. Like the sea itself, the battle in the abyss had ended. The abyssal witch was gone, for now. The crystal heart, once fractured and dim, now pulsed softly in Mirella's hands, its light no longer flawless but stronger through the cracks. The sea itself seemed to exhale a breath it had been holding for ages. Mirella, Kale, and Naru rose through the calm waters until they found a quiet reef where sea and sky met, a place where the moonlight kissed the waves and time seemed to slow. They sat on a coral ledge near the surface, the water barely lapping at their tails and toes. For a while, they said nothing. Just watched the waves, breathed, listened. "I never imagined I'd see the ocean like this," Kale said at last, his eyes reflecting the stars above and below. "I grew up hearing stories, but none of them ever came close." Mirella smiled, her hair floating gently in the current. "Most of the surface folk fear us. They think the sea is a place of monsters and shipwrecks. And we think the sea hides treasures and tempests. I guess we both only saw half the truth." Mirella looked at him, really looked at him. Not as a land dweller. Not as a castaway, but as someone meant to be part of the sea. "You were meant to be here," she said softly. "I think, the ocean called you." Kale smiled gently. "Or maybe you called me." She blushed slightly and looked away, but her heart beat warm. For a girl who had always been told to hide her voice. For a boy who had always felt like he didn't belong. They had found something whole in each other. Not perfect, but real. Naru clicked joyfully nearby, swirling through a school of glowing jellyfish. The waters shimmered with peace. Suddenly, the shell of memory pulsed in Mirella's hand. She opened it. Inside, the three completed symbols, tide clock, tear gem, and dragonfly, spun slowly, forming a glowing triangle. At the center, the crystal heart. A message appeared in light, dancing through the water. "Greater than, where ocean and sky are one, the path home begins." Kale frowned. "What does it mean?" Mirella stood, the heart glowing in her hand. "It means, we return to Nerithal." The journey back was easier now. The shadows had lifted from the sea. Fish returned to their coral homes. The kelp forest swayed with life again. Even the currents seemed to sing softly. When they reached the kingdom, the coral gates opened wide. No guards, no suspicion, only welcome. Word had already reached the palace, carried by tide magic and spirit song. The kingdom had felt the shift. The sea was healing. Queen Irelia stood waiting at the gates, her daughters by her side. Behind them, the entire court watched as Mirella swam forward, the crystal heart held gently in her arms. "Mirella of the depths," the queen said with tear-filled eyes, "you have done what none of us could." She placed her hand over her heart and bowed. Then the entire kingdom bowed with her. Mirella shook her head. "I didn't do it alone. Kale was with me, and so was Naru." The heart wasn't just restored by magic, it was healed by trust, by tears, and by light. She looked toward Kale, who swam shyly forward. The people stared, many had never seen a human beneath the waves. Queen Irelia stepped forward and took Kale's hand. "You were not born of the sea," she said kindly, "but the ocean knows your heart." She turned to the court. "Let the bond between sea and sky be restored." A cheer rose like a tidal wave. Bells rang, fish danced, pearls glowed, and the crystal heart, now placed back in its sacred chamber, shone brighter than ever before. Later, beneath the stars, Mirella and Kale sat again at the coral ledge where their hearts had first spoken. "So what now?" Kale asked. "Do I return to the land?" Mirella smiled. "Maybe, but I think, the sea will always call you." He laughed. "And maybe one day, I'll learn to breathe underwater." "Or maybe," she said, her eyes twinkling, "you already do." They reached for each other's hand. And above them, the stars sang. The sea had changed. Peace had returned to the kingdom of Nerithal, but not the peace of old, a new peace, one that had been earned through trials, tears, and courage. The crystal heart now glowed not with flawless perfection, but with radiant strength through its cracks, a symbol of healing, not hiding. And the mermaid who brought it back had changed, too. Mirella stood at the Temple of Tides, surrounded by water that shimmered like glass. The pillars of the palace spiraled high above her, wrapped in glowing coral vines. All of Nerithal had gathered, sea creatures, royals, guardians, even surface dwellers who had been welcomed in for the first time in history. Queen Mirella stood tall beside her, her eyes shining with pride and something deeper, hope. The crystal heart was not just restored, the queen said, her voice echoing through the sea, it was transformed. And so must our kingdom be. She turned to Mirella. Today, we honor not just a heroine, but a heir, chosen not by blood, but by spirit. Gasps of surprise rippled through the crowd. You were born with a song of healing, the queen continued. But you proved your worth through courage, compassion, and sacrifice. You faced the abyss, touched the broken hearts of the sea, and brought light to shadow. You are the guardian we never knew we needed. She reached for a crown unlike any other, made from dragon scale pearls, shaped by the flames of the deep and cooled in the heart's light. For in your veins flows not only sea magic, but the ancient spark of the dragon spirits, the guardians of balance, long believed to be lost. Mirella's eyes widened. My father, she whispered. I never knew who he was. Queen Mirella smiled. He was a keeper of dragon song. A flame beneath the waves. You are the last of their bloodline. And today, you rise, not just as protector, but as princess of all that swims, flies, and dreams. As the crown was placed upon her head, the crystal heart behind her pulsed. The water lifted her gently, and from the deep, a great dragon made of light and sea embers emerged, spiraling around the temple, roaring in joy. The people watched in awe as Mirella, now radiant and crowned, opened her arms. From her heart, a wave of magic spread, binding sky and sea, surface and deep, land and ocean in harmony. Later that night, Mirella stood again at her favorite place, the edge of the coral ledge where her journey had begun. Kale stood beside her. You're a princess, he said with a grin. Of dragons. And mermaids, she laughed. And maybe a little bit of mischief, too. He looked at her, serious now. Do you think the sea and the land will really stay united? She reached for his hand. Only if we keep listening. And keep trusting. He nodded. Then I'll stay. Not just because of you, but because I believe in what you're building. They leaned in, foreheads touching, the ocean glowing around them. In the distance, the stars fell gently into the waves, and the crystal heart sang once more, a lullaby of endings and beginnings. And beneath that song, the dragon princess smiled. Because she knew the sea no longer feared her gift. It celebrated it. Sparkles the end sparkles. Glowing star moral lesson of the story. True healing comes not from hiding pain, but from embracing it with courage. When we accept our differences and trust others with our hearts, we become strong enough to change not just ourselves, but the world around us. For more motivation stories, please like and subscribe this channel. Thanks and God bless.